It all started with Jim. I never imagined my life would take such a dramatic turn, but there he was, standing in that crowded room at his parents' 40th anniversary celebration, a smile on his face and a twinkle in his eyes. Jim had always been the steady force in my life, the man who grounded me when I felt lost in the chaos of my career as a wedding planner. He adored his parents, or so he thought, but I often sensed something beneath the surface. Yet I never could have guessed the depth of their cunning. Jim's parents were the epitome of affluence and socialite success. His father was a towering figure in the tech world, while his mother was known for her charity work and impeccably styled lifestyle. Together they were the perfect power couple, revered by many. But as I got to know them better, I noticed the subtle cracks in their facade. They were controlling, not just of Jim, but of everyone around them. Their opinions carried weight in the community, and people seemed to tiptoe around them, afraid to speak their minds. When we first started dating, Jim had been hesitant about introducing me to his parents. He explained that they weren't the most supportive when it came to his past relationships, often dismissing the women he'd been with as not good enough. I understood his hesitation, but I also saw a deeper issue. Jim adored them, and he couldn't bear the thought of them disapproving of me. Yet as time went on, their behavior became more overt. They critiqued my choices in friends, my career decisions, and even the way I dressed. It was subtle at first, but with each passing moment it became clear that they viewed anyone Jim cared about as a potential threat. Jim thought he was protecting me by keeping our relationship under wraps, but I could see through their masks. They weren't just controlling, they were manipulative. And they had a way of making everyone around them feel small, whether it was through subtle jabs or the unspoken expectation that we all know our place in their world. The celebration for Jim's parents' 40th anniversary was supposed to be a grand affair. They'd invited a select group of their closest friends and acquaintances, a mix of tech moguls, charity patrons, and influential figures from the community. The venue was elegant, with towering ceilings and a decor that screamed opulence. I could sense the tension in the air as we arrived, but no one dared say anything negative about Jim's parents. I was seated at the main table, next to Jim's father. He'd been drinking heavily throughout the evening, margaritas as per their signature drink of choice. His mother had been circulating the room, her sharp eyes scanning everyone in attendance. I couldn't shake the feeling that she was sizing me up, looking for any flaw or mistake that could be used against me. The toast came toward the end of the night, with Jim's father raising a glass to their success. "Here's to 40 years, he said, his voice booming over the crowd. "And here's to the next 40. May it be as prosperous as the first." I was sipping my drink when I noticed something off. The margarita tasted faintly bitter, almost as if there was an odd chemical aftertaste. I'd been careful to sample their drinks before taking a sip, but this time something felt different. Just as I opened my mouth to say something, Jim's mother stood up. She smiled politely at the crowd and clinked her glass against her husband's. "Let's keep it coming," she said, her voice laced with a playful warmth that made everyone laugh. But when she sat back down, she shot me a sidelong glance that made my skin crawl. I waited for a moment, then excused myself to go to the restroom. On my way out, I quickly switched my glass with Jim's father's. I knew he was asleep by now. He'd been snoring heavily after his 5th margarita, but I still poured a small amount of the mixture into an empty container I kept in my handbag. When I got home that night, I pulled out the sample I'd taken and called my friend Olivia, a chemist who owed me a favor. She agreed to analyze the liquid under the guise of a special project for one of my clients. A few days later, she called me back. Her tone was serious when she said, "Nancy, this isn't just bad taste, it's virulin. I've seen it before in some cases we've handled. It's not deadly, but it's definitely meant to make someone very ill." My heart raced as I processed the information. Virulin, also known as 2-bromo-2-methylpropionaldehyde, is a substance often used in certain types of pesticides or chemicals, but it can cause severe nausea, dizziness and chills. It's also been linked to cases of food poisoning. Did they think I'd drink it without noticing? I muttered, more shocked than angry. Or did they just want to see how I'd react? Olivia hesitated before saying, "This isn't the first time I've encountered something like this. There are some people in powerful positions who might be tempted to use such methods to eliminate threats or competition." I felt a chill run down my spine. If Jim's parents were capable of spiking my drink, what had they done to his past girlfriends? Over the next few weeks, I started piecing together the puzzle. Olivia agreed to help me track down other victims, women who had been in Jim's life before me. Through some research and a few carefully placed phone calls, I found a pattern. One of them was a former girlfriend named Laura, who now ran a successful catering business. She'd experienced a series of mysterious food poisoning incidents that she'd never fully recovered from. Another was a woman named Claire, who had abruptly quit her job after facing intense pressure from Jim's parents. These women weren't just random, they were all smart, driven individuals who had been silenced. I decided to confront Jim when he came home one night. He was exhausted from work. I set down the evidence I'd gathered, photos of the spiked drink, Olivia's analysis, and the interviews. This isn't just about me. This is about all the women you have loved, your parents. They've been using this violin to incapacitate anyone who gets too close to you. Jim stared at me, his eyes widening in shock. He didn't deny it. He couldn't. "I think they've been doing this for years." "And you never noticed?" Jim's parents didn't take the news well. When we confronted them, they denied everything at first. But as evidence after evidence came to light, their defensiveness turned into panic. Olivia's findings were leaked to the media, and the community began to turn against them. People who had once fawned over Jim's parents started steering clear. The socialite circle that had once orbited them began to crumble. In the end, Jim and I made a deal with his parents. Restitution. They had to pay for the harm they'd caused. Jim and I stood in our living room, staring out at the quiet street beyond our window. "I can't believe they did this to you. And I can't believe you didn't see it sooner. But you did see me, right? I always will. From now on, we're in this together." Jim and I worked together to not only rebuild our lives, but also advocate for others. Jim's parents were eventually forced to leave town, their reputations in tatters. Jim and I didn't have to go through this alone. We had friends, colleagues, and even strangers who supported us along the way. It was a messy, painful journey, but it was also a testament to the power of truth and resilience. As for me, I couldn't help but feel a strange sense of satisfaction. I had always known there was something off about Jim's parents, but I never could have imagined just how deep their cunning ran. And now that we had the proof, maybe others would finally start believing us when they heard our stories.
Okay, so let's unpack this.
Yeah.
What if your mother-in-law wasn't just giving you the side eye, but actually, like, trying to slip something really nasty into your drink?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds wild, right? Like something out of a movie.
Totally. But for one person, whose account we're looking at today, it was apparently terrifyingly real.
That's right. We're doing a deep dive into this really chilling personal story called Mother-in-Law Tried to Poison Me.
And it's not just about the shocking events themselves.
No, exactly. It's a chance to look at those subtle currents of manipulation, how control works inside a family, and, well, what happens when it all just explodes.
Right. So our mission here is to pull out the key stuff from this story, give you a clearer picture of these kinds of dynamics without, you having to live through it.
Hopefully, yeah, get those insights.
Okay, so the account starts with Nancy. She's our main person here meeting Jim. And it's at his parents' 40th anniversary party. Straight away, there's this kind of contrast, isn't there?
Mm-hmm. Jim sees his parents one way, probably the way he always has.
Yeah, the usual.
But Nancy, coming in fresh, she starts noticing things that feel a bit off.
Like what kind of things?
Well, Jim's parents, they project this image, high society, dad's a big deal in tech, mom does a lot of charity work, affluence, influence, the whole thing.
Okay. The perfect picture.
Sort of. But Nancy picks up on this controlling vibe, not just towards Jim, but like they need to manage everyone around them.
And didn't Jim hesitate to introduce her? That seems telling.
It really does. It hints that maybe this wasn't the first time his parents caused issues with a relationship.
Right. And then later, you get those little digs at Nancy's life choices.
Classic undermining tactic.
Exactly. Subtle ways to chip away at her standing, maybe make Jim doubt things.
Okay, so that brings us to the party itself. The big 40th anniversary bash. All designed to show off their success, their perfect family image.
Yeah, and it becomes the stage for something pretty unbelievable. The setting is key, this grand display.
But Nancy feels tension, even with all the celebrating. Yeah, an undercurrent. And then there's this detail, the father drinking a lot of margaritas, apparently their signature drink.
Huh. Seems minor, but you said it becomes important.
Very. Because then comes the moment Nancy takes a sip of her drink, and it tastes wrong, bitter.
Oof. That little internal alarm bell.
Right. Just enough to make her think, hang on.
And her reaction is interesting. She doesn't just ignore it.
No, she actually listens to that gut feeling. And then the mother gives this toast, apparently kind of showy, and follows it with this glance at Nancy that Nancy reads as, well, chilling.
Wow.
And that solidifies it for her. So, quick thinking, she swaps her drink with the father's the margarita guy and somehow manages to get a sample of her original drink.
That's incredible presence of mind. Seriously. Under pressure like that.
Absolutely pivotal, because she takes that sample to her friend, Olivia, who's a chemist.
Okay, and this is where it goes from awkward family stuff to potentially criminal.
This is it. Olivia runs the analysis, and it comes back positive for something called virulin.
Virulin. What even is that?
Chemically, it's 2-bromo-2-methylpropionylaldehyde. Definitely not something you'd find in the kitchen cabinet. It's used in, like, pesticides, chemical manufacturing.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. And the effects. The account mentions nausea, dizziness, chills, things you could easily mistake for, say, bad food poisoning.
Which makes it even more insidious, right?
Yeah.
Plausible deniability.
Exactly. And Olivia adds this other layer, suggesting that this kind of substance may be hard to trace, could be something people with power might use to quietly remove threats.
That's a really dark thought. It makes you wonder about the motive. It's not just disapproval.
It suggests something much more calculated, potentially really dangerous lengths to keep control. And this discovery, it pushes Nancy and Olivia to start digging.
Into Jim's past, looking for other incidents.
Precisely. And they find things. They start looking into his ex-girlfriends.
And don't tell me.
Well, yeah. There's Laura. She apparently had a sudden, really bad case of mysterious food poisoning while dating Jim.
No way.
Okay. Then there's another one, Claire. She talks about facing intense pressure from the parents, so much so that the relationship ended, and she even felt she had to quit her job.
Wow. So Nancy wasn't the first one they targeted.
It certainly starts to look that way. A pattern seems to emerge.
And the account mentions something about the type of women, right? That they were smart, driven individuals.
Yeah, that detail feels important. It suggests it wasn't just anyone Jim dated, but maybe women they saw as what? A challenge. Someone who wouldn't be easily controlled.
Someone who might pull Jim away from their influence.
Perhaps. It really paints the parents' actions not just as misguidedly protective, but as actively, strategically manipulative.
Yeah.
A consistent pattern.
Okay, so Nancy now has the lab results, these stories from Laura and Claire. Pretty damning stuff. She confronts Jim.
Can you imagine that conversation, laying all that out about his own parents?
Must have been incredibly difficult. How did he react?
The account says shock, disbelief at first, which, you can understand. But the evidence was strong. And Nancy apparently asked him straight up, did you ever suspect anything? Did you ignore something?
Ooh, tough question. Addresses that whole idea of willful blindness.
Exactly. Those complex family loyalties and maybe not wanting to see the truth.
And the parents.
Yeah.
When they get confronted, let me guess, denial.
Oh, yeah. Total denial at first. But as Nancy laid out the analysis, the other women's stories, the account says denial turned to panic.
Because their whole world, that perfect image, was about to shatter.
Right. The exposure was the real threat. And then somehow Olivia's findings leaked to the media.
And that changes everything.
Completely. It's not a private family drama anymore. It's public. And the community reaction, well, it shows how fast things can turn.
Their social standing just crumbles.
Yep. The charity work, the reputation they'd built, it all starts to fall apart when these allegations come out.
It's a stark reminder, isn't it, how fragile even the most carefully crafted reputations can be.
Absolutely. And eventually there is some form of accountability even outside the courts.
What happens?
They reach an agreement, restitution for the women who were affected. It's an acknowledgement, at least, of the harm done.
That's significant. And Nancy and Jim.
The account says they stay together, rebuild, and even start advocating for others in similar situations. Olivia keeps working too, looking into other possible cases. The parents. They eventually leave town, reputation ruined.
Wow, quite the downfall. The account also mentions the support Nancy and Jim got, right?
Yeah.
From friends, colleagues.
Yeah, and even strangers. It highlights how important that network is when you're going through something so isolating and, frankly, unbelievable.
For sure. And Nancy's final thought. That strange sense of satisfaction. I get that.
You would, wouldn't you? Finally being believed, having your truth validated after being gaslit or disbelieved. That must be powerful.
So, wrapping up this deep dive into Mother-in-Law Tried to Poison Me, what are the big takeaways that really stick with you? For me, it's just how deep manipulation can run, even in families that look perfect on the outside, hidden under all that money and status.
Yeah, that's huge. And for me, it really hammers home how vital it is to trust your gut, your instincts. Nancy felt something was wrong, even if it seemed crazy, and she acted on it. That saved her.
Definitely. Trusting yourself.
And, the power of just bringing the truth out, no matter how ugly it is, that's what dismantled the whole facade.
So here's something for you, the listener, to chew on. This story, okay, it's extreme. Poison is extreme. But it makes you think about the quieter ways power games and manipulation play out in our own families, relationships. It really pushes you to think about how watchful we need to be. Recognizing those maybe smaller red flags, even when they come from people we love, people we think we know inside out.
And it raises that crucial question, how often do we just accept the surface? The nice house, the important job, the public image. This story is such a stark warning that those things can be masks. Really effective masks for much darker stuff going on underneath. It's an encouragement, really, to look closer, listen to those nagging feelings, and maybe question the dynamics around you. What might be happening just below that veneer of normalcy?